Look what I have. It's a magic scroll. Do you know, you know how I know it's a magic scroll? I'll show you. Do you recognize that? It's his signature. It's actually his signature. Like, it's got the seal and everything. I'm going to see. And that is because I have a presidential commission signed by our 45th president on the 11th day of January in the year of our Lord 2021. And now he's our 47th president too, and has been signing a lot more things tonight. We are here tonight to talk about Mr. President and his magic pen. You want me to read it? You want me to read it? So this is Donald J. Trump, right? It's like I have to hold it up like this because President of the United States of America, to all who shall see this presence, greeting. Know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the integrity and ability Rachel Fulton Brown of Illinois, I do appoint her a member of the Cultural Property Advisory Committee for a term expiring April 25th, 2023, and do authorize and empower her to execute and fulfill the duties of that office according to law, and to have and to hold the said office with all of the powers, privileges, and emoluments thereunto of right appertaining unto her, the said Rachel Fulton Brown, subject to the conditions prescribed by law. In testimony whereof, I have caused these letters to be made patent. I should have practiced. In testimony whereof, I have caused these letters to be made patent, and the seal of the United States to be hereunto affixed. Done at the city of Washington, this 11th day of January, in the year of our Lord 2021, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 245th. By the President, and it's got Pompeo, Secretary of State, and Donald J. Trump.
Oh, it's massively cool.
Empowered
with this scroll, this magic scroll. That is so cool.
It's like I've got my very own magic scroll, which is expired, right? My presidential commission, and you know, the duties, rights, and emoluments. The emoluments is we met on Zoom for most of the year that I was in it, and I got to go to Washington D.C. once in the summer. And then they fired me. So everybody, because I was thinking I should tweet. Yeah, they fired everybody. I should tweet out the letter of firing that they sent, which only I on the committee got. Right, there's some discussion about exactly why I was so privileged. I think it was because I was brown, and they just started with me, and then we complained, and we're saying, why are you making? It's like, resign or we fire you by the end of the day, and it was like. They were replacing the members of the committee because it was a presidential commission, and you know, they caught up with the appointments.
Yeah.
However, in order to be on that committee, I went through me and my husband had to go through the full State Department clearance for me to be on that particular committee, and I got his signature. I had to swear in like at the downtown office in the basement of one of the office buildings, because I didn't even get to like swear in person because it was during COVID, right? So yeah. Anyway.
You got the scroll.
I've got the scroll, and I've got the magic signature. Has everyone enjoyed watching Mr. Trump sign things this week?
I never thought I would enjoy watching things being signed more. It was like I'm utterly discombobulated this week with all the winning.
Well, I think we should just go straight to our pictures, and there he is getting sworn in, right? And it's like, so we could have done, we realized we could do in our, our usual symbolic modes, the symbolism of the swearing in and things like that. But, which of course included, the great hat that Melania wore in the midst.
Hat. Oh, yes.
The hat wins the symbolism of the swearing in, the hand raised in the presence of the Bibles, which he forgot to put his hand on. So everybody's going to be worried about.
I don't blame him for that. I don't blame Melania for that either. I think Robert's rushed through it and he was just catching up.
Well, as I understand it, I was listening to the CBS commentary because that's what I landed on watching the live stream on. I know. The rest of you were, watching the sane, uncommented versions on other stream channels. Yeah. And I ended up getting some commentary. Their explanation was the swearing in had to happen at noon, right? The sort of magic time. And they got behind for some reason. I don't know, because I was working until I turned it on right before the swearing in, because I had my own writing to do this week. And so they were saying, they were late. And so I think some of the rush was they were trying to hit the clock, right?
But
so
why?
It's like magic time. I mean, it's like
time?
There's nothing but magic in the air, clearly, on Monday this week. It was, Martin Luther King Day. It was Robert E. Lee's birthday. It was.
It was. That's interesting, because I noticed the statues of Lincoln and Lee behind him in the rotunda.
Right.
And I didn't realize Lee was still there. I'm happy to hear he is. I didn't realize that. That was kind of interesting. Huh.
Okay, I've just done something bad. There we go. Okay, I was trying to pause. Let me properties pause. Manual. There we go. I'm my own. It's like, Carrie Underwood really came through, right, when her music didn't start.
She was amazing. What a voice. I've never really heard her sing before because I don't really follow kind of popular music, but. Yeah, she's definitely got some pipes. Good for her.
Well,
and
I think she was
the national anthem. So
America the Beautiful.
Oh, America the Beautiful. Sorry. Yeah. Which
I was not happy with the man singing the national anthem because he didn't articulate the words.
He was being very operatic and very dramatic, and he had his shirt undone. Dude, wear a tie. It's the inauguration. Come on.
I didn't know who he was. Did you know who he was?
No, but I mean, he's an opera singer. They announced who he was. He has a beautiful voice. He does. But
anyway, he could have articulated more clearly. No, but she was singing America. She would. See, we did. We could have done a full, Mosaic Arc breakdown of the spectacle, right? Of the spectacle and the fashion. And
ladies' dresses
let us know in the comments if you want us to do that some other time. But we're worried about the pin this week. Yeah. But anyway, no, Carrie Underwood. So she was supposed to have like backup recorded music, and it didn't start, and so they sort of hung out for about a minute. Everybody looking like solemn, and then
they had a glitch in the sound system once. It glitched on and off really quickly before that point. So I have a feeling that maybe that was what caused the Trumps to be late coming in, because it was a sound system problem.
They were trying to get the sound system going. That would make sense anyway. And then she realized it wasn't going to start, so she's like, the words, help me out here. And I was like, the thing is, the improv. It's like, how this race has always raises questions like how scripted is everything, and then how much of it was seamlessly improvised, not to script. And the problem is, if you're dealing with people who are really good at being in these public roles, you don't know which it is,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, I've done this in my own tiny way for graduation when I'm marshal or assistant marshal in our processions, right? In the morning event. Well, actually in the afternoon. Anyway, I do this, right? And the thing is, when the cameras are all on you, you realize you're not the one directing anything. They're the staff running around and they're directing this and that. Nobody's watching them. They're looking at the people in costume. So your job is stay solemn, right? Or happy or whatever. And then whatever happens is right. You pause, you stand, you move, you go up the stairs, you know, whatever you do it with the sort of mode as this is what was supposed to happen. And, you know, it was clear that wasn't what was supposed to happen with the music, but Underwood pulled it off as if it was, right? It was great.
Yes, it was great. And it made it feel, well, I mean, I wasn't there, but just watching it looked like it felt more like homemade, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and that
like a family affair.
That apparently, you know, is of course one of the things that won the youth. The sort of why was TikTok so important, and why was Barron's advice to his father so important? That the younger people used to seeing spectacle performed and scripted and such like that actually like things that seem not so scripted and I mean I don't think that's why the music broke, but it helps, right? Because we're so used to everything being formalized and scripted and such, and having something not scripted, yeah, everybody's going to respond to it because it's like, this is great. This is real and authentic, and we want this.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about what he scripted. No, the scripting in the other fashion, right? Is the
I detected some patterns in what he was signing. Yeah.
Okay.
That first day for sure.
So we are here not to talk to you about the formal, but the pen, what he did with his pen for hour. I don't know how long. It's like I spent all day. I was building one of my Anchorstein buildings in the afternoon, and I spent a lot of time listening to Fox coverage and commentary and stuff like that, wanting him to show up at that desk. Yes. That they set up in the Capitol One.
He signed about 20, I think, at that desk in the Capitol building. I think it was
Capitol One.
Right.
It's the
no, it was right after the inauguration. He was actually in an actual office. It was really opulent looking, and he signed a bunch of stuff, about 20 of them, right there. And he said, "I'm going to sign more at the Capitol One later." Right. And then at the Capitol One stadium, they had set up a very small desk, and he was signing more there too. But he did these first ones. And I should have prepared more. I should have watched the tape more. But there was about 58 between the 20th and today, the 24th, that are up on the whitehouse.gov website as of like 4:00 this afternoon, because it's the last time I was looking at it. 20% of them were related to borders, language, and culture. I think that was very significant. And there were certain phrases that were repeated over and over again, like you know, sovereign nation. Let's see, I don't through a few of these here. The first one was ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs. The language they wrote this in, I mean, they came right out and said they called it illegal and immoral discrimination. So this was happening on MLK's, you know, birthday, right?
Right.
And they're talking about getting rid of discrimination because it's immoral.
Right.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong, because you and I have been taught this all our lives, that you don't discriminate based on any race, you know, sex, religion, political affiliation. And all of that was thrown out the window 4 years ago, and they just embraced all of that. So with a stroke of his pen, gone. That's gone. But it was interesting he called that immoral.
Yes, my favorite meme thus far. Trump is wiping out all we worked for, and the cat says, "We aren't even past the first week." Right. Yeah. So yes, I mean it's undoing and it's undoing some things. Was the DEI one that included the Johnson executive order that set up affirmative action? I mean, some of it was taking out not just things that have happened in the last 4 years, but things that have happened in my lifetime, right? That was
Yeah.
1965.
Right, right. I didn't even realize it went back to Johnson. I thought it just went back to Reagan because it's the first time I can remember being in my late teens hearing about affirmative action. I'm like, a what? Are you kidding me? Just because you give the name affirmative doesn't mean you're allowed to discriminate against people. That breaks the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Everybody
And the
knew this.
executive
Nobody did
order, that
anything.
one came out the next year, so they broke it
Yeah.
almost from the beginning.
They broke it immediately. Right. It was dumb. But yeah, Americans deserve a government committed to serving every person with equal dignity and respect. And I thought, wow, these are very strong terms that they're using to describe that. But along the theme of, borders and language and culture, they're defining Americans throughout this. They're making very sure that, the beneficiary of these orders are Americans, regardless of their sex, which they also define, by the way, in the other orders. That's the language part. I'm just gonna find that here. Oh, I don't want a lot of dead air here, so I'll just try to do it from memory. So they also define male and female. It applies to all government passports, any government issued documents at all. And
the federal
it
government.
Talks about, yes.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, of course, recognizing
anybody who gets money from them too, which means any federal contractors, right? Which is a lot. Any school that gets even beneficiary benefits from a GSL from their students, which is just a loan. That's a federal program, right? Any of them have to do this now. And they said it needs to comport with reality. So they were reversing all the insane changes in language that exist on a, what do they call it? A continuum. This can't be a continuum. No, I really do have to find this.
Find your notes. So now you're so excited. You've leapt right into this. And this, this is the phenomenon of, here we have, Trump at his desk in the Oval Office with like stacks and stacks of these things.
Yes.
That it is, it was stunning how quickly they just set up everything this time. I got this commission, in fact, they didn't appoint me to that particular committee until it was 2021, right? So it was in fact a few days before. It was still signed before the 11th of January, right? So between January 6th and the previous inauguration, the feeling at this time was, we are going to have absolutely everything ready to go on day one, and there it was. And there it was.
Oh yeah, they did.
Oh my gosh. And then people, so much so that people started complaining, well, why didn't they take care of this? Well, that came out, 2 days later or something like that, right? It's like I was just seeing on the socials something about an executive order that's halted the money to Ukraine.
Yes.
I didn't even see that one yet on the site.
Yeah, and people are saying, "Oh, it's amazing! Trump did this, in the first week. Zelensky wants to talk peace, because he's been cut off. It was that simple.
Right?
Stop giving him money."
Well, but I think they just cut him off today. Didn't it? Wasn't it?
They did. Yeah. That was the 20. Yeah, that was on the 24th. So, no. So the language here. Oh yeah.
You keep looking at. Settle down in your notes, but what thoughts I had about this is, like, one, the preparation that his staff has been going through, leading up to this, right? Because absolutely every one of these orders is going to be nitpicked over, massively.
And I'm sure, and I'm sure that, and I'm sure they war gamed that too, months or years ago, even, because I don't think for one second that Trump and his wife was right along with him, and all of the supporters, behind the scenes ones, not the ones chomping at the bit to be interviewed,
right? But
the people doing the actual work, there was never a doubt in their mind this is where they were going to be this week doing this, and they prepared for it for 4 years. I don't have any doubt about that. But yeah,
it still took everything we've been talking about this past year, including the campaign this summer, to get to this moment. right? It's like, how
Yeah, it
magic does
did.
it feel that things could have gone differently? They really could have.
Hmm.
And so with, the music didn't go on and Carrie Underwood sang anyway. I mean, that feeling of it's, I mean, the inch or whatever, right? That
Yeah.
it's amazing that we're here in this moment watching this week play out with absolutely everything that we've been so frustrated with for decades
Well, yeah,
suddenly
it is. It
with
has
his
been
signature
decades.
under it.
Yeah, it's been particularly bad over the past 5 years. I mean, people have been
Oh,
getting hurt and
yes.
killed, and the response has been, well, I don't care, from your government,
Yeah.
from the news media, who are just despicable people for not giving a crap about raped and murdered women, or women who go into sporting events and get their skull crushed by a ball
Yeah.
from a guy pretending to be a girl, and everybody pretends that he's a girl, even though they know no, he's not. You know, this is, I mean, stuff like this. There's got to be a story a week coming out about stuff like this,
Hmm.
and it was so frustrating to see. What else can you call them except enemies of their own people? Causing all of this chaos and harm, just reveling in it and practically mocking anybody who complained about it, or gaslighting them into calling them, well, you're just racist and you're just a bigot and you're just a what-a-phobe. Just insert a word here. It's just been truly horrible psychological warfare
Hmm.
and physical warfare against some Americans, who some of them aren't here anymore. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, the pardons, the January 6th pardons were huge.
that was huge, and it's very satisfying. It'll be even more satisfying to see the people responsible for it rot in prison forever, because they falsely imprisoned people
Right.
without charge, without trial, for years. Now, I did take civics in high school. It was required then. It's required again
Mm.
now, and we all know why, because they were getting away with this kind of crap for years because people didn't know their rights. I remembered them, and I've spent the last 4 years in a constant state of anger over it. And yeah,
You're very mild mannered on the surface, but this week has scratched all of the.
it's a volcano
It's
under
yes,
here, man.
no. So I'm going to try to calm you down, and we're going to go through some of these step by step to get it. But it is the I've been listening to both Avita talk through a lot of them on her morning show, and her boss Dan Bongino, and Dan was talking about how, I mean, he's saying this is what I was saying we should do all along. Although he's a little sad not getting the Secret Service appointment, but
Yeah,
whatever.
I wasn't too
We
cool.
need him doing a show and analyzing things. And he was saying his theme for this is the Rock'em Sock'em Robots. He's saying you can't because of the way, and this is the Saul Alinsky method that we've been watching play out is the isolate and freeze the target, isolate it and attack it. That if you and that we kept getting wrong-footed on over and over and over again for the last 8 years. If you let that the other team target something, they'll just stick on it and it all blows up in your face. So it's been very practical in the gaming on this. It's saying you need a whole desk full of these things so that there's too many things to be able to isolate.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And we've watched. I mean, we watched the media. Well, this week, the only thing they could agree to isolate on was Elon Musk, and it's like that wasn't even part of that. That talk about the
Laugh.
no, I know, but it talk about the improv that went awry, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's so pitiful.
First
So
she's doing
pitiful.
his
Like
Rocky thing, and then
well, they got a 15-year-old script, and they're like, what are my lines here? Oh, yeah, Nazi, Nazi. And everybody's just too bad doubled over laughing at the stupidity of it.
right. But I mean, it's desperately trying to distract from this pen that is signing absolutely all of these things, right? Which
Well, that wasn't going to work because he did it all in one day.
He's been doing it for days and days and days. I mean, I think
Yeah.
he signed some more.
Well,
Like he
the
signed
big
one for
ones, yeah.
FEMA Is he going to,
Yeah.
did he do that one today? And he's
Well, I
traveling
only saw,
to North
yeah.
Carolina, now in LA, so visiting the disaster sites and,
Hmm.
attending to people's complaints about how they've been treated.
Yes, they've been
It's
treated
like
despicably.
magic. It's
Yeah.
it's it's over and over and over again. But it's fascinating, of course, that the central symbolism of the day of the inauguration was his pen, right? I'm going to sign and sign and sign and sign and sign. And then you're in the real sort of magical space that we inhabit, which is these pieces of paper with signatures. Now, mine is interesting because it has, I don't know whether the EOs come with this too, but that it had to have the seal, right? That it's
Oh, yeah.
embossed. And the sort of lovely this talk about a McLuhan media in moment, right? It's like the authority of a paper signed
Yeah.
and sealed, and this is what creates reality for us. He's like, go all the way back to Magna Carta, right? With the sealed
That is a big piece of paper.
well, and these are, I mean, there's some of it's handwritten. I mean, not just his signature, which I hope is actually a true signature, but they calligraphied in the dates and my name and things like that and the specifications. I think this is a form. It's the form for a presidential commission, but then filled in with this kind of, you will make it real by writing it, is a fascinating phenomenon.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And it's like we needed to see him signing I didn't see him sign this one, so I have my doubts about it. He sits down, he signs it, he holds it up, he's saying this is the text. I mean, talk about this is the reality. You're saying they're making it real. It's like, here's the reality of the writing and the signing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening behind the scenes. It's not happening in a desk that you can't see. It's happening here for me to show you on camera that I am signing these things.
And he signed them. He had a whole stack full of pens. I didn't realize this. My husband pointed out to me. He says he's only using one pen for each. Because I said, I hope he doesn't run out of ink, because he's got all these things. He said, no, he's got a whole pile of pens there. And then he was giving the pens away. And I'm like, oh, of course, that'd be a keepsake, wouldn't it?
These are magic wands, don't you get it?
They're magic wands, right?
They've written reality into being.
Yeah, not just spoken. Yeah.
Well, no, and so I didn't look this up so that I could do it like off the top of my head and improv it and not be remembered. In Hilary Mantel's book, Wolf Hall, there's a passage that my husband read out to me. It's the only part of the book that I know because my husband read it and I wasn't interested in reading her magic story about Cromwell, right? Who destroys Our Lady's treasure, devotion in Henry's England. But
I tried.
But there's a passage in it where she wrote, Oliver Cromwell is writing spells, right? And he's writing out laws, right? And there's this I do appreciate that she captured that this sort of write it out and it becomes true sense. And we're going to go through some of the orders that you were looking at the vocabulary on and things like that. But the ritual practice, performative ritual practice of having written it all out.
Yeah.
Trump, I mean, it's so interesting how well Trump understood that was necessary. It's not just we've issued these things. It's you need to see me sign them.
Well, people just dismiss him as a showman, but you're right. He needs people to see him doing it.
Yes.
Right. It's not just performative for performance sake. It has another purpose to it, and that's just basically it's kind of, I guess, legitimizes, finalizes something that in people's minds when they're watching this, like, okay, now that's happened. Okay, now I feel better. He's actually put a signature on it, and I saw him do it. Right. Well, it's the same reason people are saying, well, he didn't put his hand on the Bible. It's not magic, people. Okay.
So this is interesting. It's like people say, oh, he didn't put it. So the magic, but the desire for the magic is there. And it is very interesting. It's like what we count as magic in the United States, because of the way we constitute our reality, is these rituals of writing. And in the Middle Ages, famously, you'd have you might have texts like this, and there's a whole scholarship now on the transition from ritual performances making things real to written documents making things real. It's actually a harder reality to pull off than you imagine, right? Is it real because you stood together and said certain things? Is it real because you like exchanged certain objects? The famous, like in Gifts of Land or something, a clod of earth, right? Here's the earth, right? So here, or is it, or you clasp your hands or something like that.
Or in a wedding, you exchange rings and you stand up in front of witnesses. It has to be in front of witnesses. And you have to perform words. You have to say certain things. And people have to hear you saying them, and they have to see you and hear you saying them.
Right.
Or it doesn't happen.
Right. Or it doesn't happen. Right. Famously in Princess Bride, when she said, "We're married," he's like, "Did you say I do?" And it's like,
that's right.
No, nobody, I didn't say it. Then you're not married, right? You didn't say those words. Well, so in our situation, simply saying the words isn't enough. It had to be written out and signed. And then that makes it established, right? And so what I'm trying to get everybody to be thinking about is how if he hadn't signed those EOs, they wouldn't be in effect right now.
Well, if he hadn't signed them, they wouldn't be in effect. If he had signed them off camera, people.
Well, they would have been technically they would have been in effect, but he knows that he needed to show the signing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. People wouldn't have felt the full force of what that meant immediately, right in that moment. And because they did, it created this amazing amount of excitement around everybody talking about it. And like you said, the people who want to nitpick and attack it can't, because they've just the scattershot everywhere. They can't. They just can't grab one. Well,
that's because he did so many of them, right? It's this sort of whole flock. Right. Of them, but but
also the performance itself, everybody was watching this.
Everybody was watching it. Yeah.
Everybody was watching it, and nobody was watching them. Nobody was listening to them. And the occasions where people were trying to watch and they were interrupted, you remember being interrupted by these really annoying people. Go away, I'm trying to listen to him. So even that itself worked against them.
We all witnessed it. Right, we're all witness. It's like saying with the marriage, you have to have the witnesses. This is he was making the country witness to the signing. And what's fascinating. So I'm studying. Substack is all full of things about whether or not we're re-enchanted and things like that. This writing is a kind of enchantment. I mean, it's we've been watching Discovery Witches still, right? And you do all these spells, and you have to have candles and incense and it's liturgical.
Lots of smoke,
and smoke and gestures and tying and things like that. Our faith in the significance of the written is astonishing. It's magical in its own way. And of course we're in this moment now in the digital where we're anxious about things being changed, things not being real. I mean, this is what we're saying, like the improv on camera, we hope we can trust, because we're in this uncertainty of all this stuff about AI, right? Whether the AI generated things are true or not. Yeah. So this authenticating of the words and consider, like, the day before he signed it, all those things, all of the things he said were like about Americans and sex and things like that were already true.
They were already true. Yeah. Yeah. But other people were still wielding the language as a weapon.
Yeah.
But
isn't it amazing that it can work at all? Like, how did they do that? How did they manage to convince themselves I think it's not just been the last 4 years. It's been decades of building up to.
It has been decades of building up, and it took a dastardly turn when the corporate world got involved in it.
Yeah.
Why they got involved in it, I don't know. A lot of them were bribed to get involved in it. Were flat out given money to do it, right, to make up for the lost business if there was going to be any. Right. This is why Bud Light still exists. This is why Gillette still exists. If you don't remember that, look that one up.
Yeah, I remember that
Well,
one.
Disney still exists, which is just shocking,
Mm,
because of what they've been doing. So the people I mean, just the masses didn't believe it, but
right.
there were people in strategic positions of either, authority or influence that also didn't believe it, but they were still pushing it for some reason. And that's what it felt like, a psychological war, right? It felt like being held captive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you couldn't do anything about it. What were you going to do about it? Trump brought up debanking. I was shocked to learn that was even legal. I'm not going to let you access your money. Why? Because I don't like you. No, how can any bank do that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's because it's
And yet they were
not
doing
your
it.
money after they have it. You give it to them.
Right. That's what they want you to believe. Yeah.
Well, no,
And
technically that's what it is, right? It's like you hand it over you hand it over to them to use as they will. It's not your
well, not
money
as they
anymore.
will. I didn't
No,
I didn't give
technically it's
anybody
not
my
your
permission
money
to buy
anymore.
slaves,
It's well,
for
I know, but
instance.
that's okay. We're not going to do the magic of banking right now. What we're doing right now is the magic of language and writing and this sort of
Yeah.
performance of things. And it's so, but it's interesting that the thing that you were thinking about in your study of the collection of them was how much of it was about specific language, right?
Yeah, it
It's
was. It
the
was about
spell, the
specific
magic
language.
spells of saying this is an American and this is the way we're going to define our community, and it's all
Right.
words.
Yeah, right. It's going to be male and female. It's not going to be confused with gender. We're not using that language anymore. And we are a sovereign nation. That comes up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, well, like, I'll just, okay. So defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to federal government. So extremism, truth, realism. The erasure of sex and language and policy has a corrosive impact not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system.
Wow.
That's a powerful statement.
Yes.
Language, language has a corrosive or protective, right? The opposite impact on the validity of the entire American system. Just the language and the language on sex.
The language at
Yeah,
all. Yes.
yeah, but the language at all does. But the issue was sex because people were denying it was real, and
Mm-hmm.
women and little girls were getting hurt because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's gone. That's done. The sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. So they're talking about language. They're talking about reality. This is stunning that an executive order using those words was signed. That it's an acknowledgement of how powerful language is and how it can destroy an entire society and how it almost did.
Mm-hmm.
It's stunning. It's really stunning. Let's see. Oh, then the DEI stuff as well. Then they said equal dignity. It was, yeah, the discrimination was, quote, forced, illegal, and immoral discrimination. Yeah. They are now requiring equal dignity and respect. So dignity, respect,
Mm-hmm.
morality. So nobody wanted to talk about morality. That's a very powerful word too, isn't it? So, there was a group called the Moral Majority, which everybody hated years ago, and I can understand why. The guy was kind of
Was that
obnoxious.
Buchanan's group?
That
No.
wasn't
That
Buchanan.
wasn't Buchanan.
That was Jerry
Falwell,
Falwell.
Falwell, yeah.
I think it was Falwell back in the 80s. And yeah, he was, I mean, just the way he talked, it was just kind of obnoxious and nobody liked him. But so that, unfortunately, that word got co-opted, and everybody reflexively said, no, we can't have morality. It's like, wait a minute, not stealing is moral.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened over the past 4 years? We're not going to punish stealing. You just need to be compassionate, right? So when you get rid of morality, your society falls apart. And it started because nobody liked the word. Powerful word. That's just my opinion.
I've been seeing, so I have, I mean, I see friends on Facebook in trauma right now, very sad at the way things are going and fearful and such. Um, and I've been sort of trying to, I haven't engaged with any of them because it feels a bit, it's like you didn't get it yet.
Yeah.
But how, I mean, you're right. This is, I'm looking at the one on sorry, I've lost my place. Defending women from gender ideology. And you're right that it's very, I mean, I am curious about who actually wrote these. And they do sound, slightly different one to the other. So it's different people who've written them. I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure
Right.
they have an army of attorneys writing these things
Oh
up.
yeah. Well, although I've already heard, people laughing at how this one tries to define sex.
Try, tries? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
apparently it's biologically stupid, and it's like, what? I mean, and of course they wrote these knowing that they'd be nitpicked over in
Mhm.
that the language would be nitpicked over in the desperate attempt to prove that they can't say what they're trying to
Okay.
say.
I'm sorry. Man in a dress says what? That's my response from now on.
I've been watching MASH too much. It's Klinger, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Klinger says what?
well, and the irony of
Klinger
that is, of
knew he
course, he's
wasn't a
trying to say that
woman.
he was trying to, he wants a Section 8 to
Yeah.
be
And
considered
nobody believes
nuts,
him.
but
Yeah.
that
Nobody believes you believe you're a woman. So they're essentially all Klinger. Nobody believes you actually believe you're a woman. You just want out.
yes, I mean they did. You're right. I think they've done a good job of this, trying to make the difference between the language and the reality, just
Yeah.
the terms and the actual
Yeah. Reality has to mean something.
biology.
It's not mutable.
I mean, that you said this unhealthy road is paved by an ongoing and purposeful attack against the ordinary, longstanding use and understanding of biological and scientific terms, right?
Yep.
So that's
Terms, more
the
language.
language.
Yep.
Replacing the immutable biological reality of sex with an internal, fluid, and subjective sense of self, unmoored from biological facts.
Mm-hmm.
Invalidating the true and biological category of woman, improperly transforms laws and policies designed to protect sex-based opportunities into laws and policies that undermine them, replacing long-standing cherished legal rights and values with an identity-based inchoate social concept. Accordingly, my administration will defend women's rights and protect freedom of conscience by using clear and accurate language and policies that recognize women are biologically female and men are biologically male.
Yeah. Words mean things. You can't just change them because based on your feelings and expect the entire world to bow at your feet.
Well, this is the opposite side of the magic we're talking about, and that in fact, if you can change the name of something, it changes the reality of it.
Well, names are very powerful, and that's the next thing on the list.
On your list or on the list?
On mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but this I have a variety of things that I'm thinking now are going to be recovered. One is, I think, we're the reality of the mythological is so powerful right now. It's like not just the narrative, but the sense of being in the midst of something that isn't just the material, obviously. But on the other hand, we know, I think we're going to get the Middle Ages back in both forms, right? We're going to get both the mystical, contemplative, prayerful life of liturgy and the actual story that we are grounded in. And it would be great if we actually got scholasticism back and some rigor in our use of language and logic.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Logic isn't taught.
Things that actually, these and most of scholastic most of scholastic thinking was grounded in defining terms accurately. And we have been on this trajectory of, names don't mean anything for a while, the nominalists. We want our names to attach to something that we can recognize as.
And just like that, my least favorite Shakespeare play just popped into my head.
Okay.
Romeo and Juliet. Right? Rose by any other name will smell as sweet.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been going on a long time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the sort of does the name mean that is the name actually point to a certain reality, and that's why the the gender you know identity stuff was claiming a radical ability to rename things, and then ironically, and that renamed thing becomes the thing that it is named as. So we're in this
Yeah.
very philosophically complicated moment that we want to say the names attached to the things that are real, and the names themselves can't, renaming something that isn't that thing can't change the thing. No magic spells in saying I am a dog, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. So re-enchanting the world. Right. Remember, we talked to John Carter about that a couple
Mm-hmm.
months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a theme that's been coming up. You mentioned today over and over again. How's that different than changing words?
Right. And interestingly, philosophy has not been very capable as a discipline, as an intellectual discipline of dealing with these sorts of levels of concept for a while, which
Mm-hmm.
is, it's like to say, why have we fallen into the state that we've fallen into? Well, we are not thinking rigorously. We're not thinking with actual logic in the proper formal sense. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
capable
Right.
of proving this right now. I just know it's true. I need to. I finally decided that I like the pre-nominalist scholastics. Right? They knew what they were up to. They were trying to like anchor things in
That's a good way
logic.
of putting it. Yeah, things have to be anchored. They have to be anchored in reality. Is
Right.
logic reality? Probably. Yeah.
Well, we
Right.
need to figure this out. And I think that people are being harmed because they were being lied to about the degree of mutability, the sort of, if you could rename things using your magic words,
Yeah.
what makes it real. On the other hand, we just spent some time talking about how because Donald Trump signed all these things, now they are real in our
Yeah,
social
because
sense.
that's concrete. That's something you can touch. It makes it real for people, even though they're not there. They can see, oh, hey, look, he signed that thing, and there's the pen, and he handed it over to that other guy, and that guy picked it up and he grabbed it, and they can
Mm-hmm.
easily, because they're seeing it, they can easily put themselves there, right? And I think if you go to the National Archives, that's probably where they're kept, right? These EOs and things, they're probably kept there. If you want to see them in person, you probably can
Oh,
at some point.
probably.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of protection original documents are under. Because it's like,
Hopefully better than 20 years ago, but that's another story.
well, no, so this is an interesting thing. It's like if I don't have this piece of paper, I didn't get this piece of paper until like my term was pretty much done. I mean, I
Uh,
only got the piece of paper in person the last meeting we were there, and they said, "Here's your commission," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" So
you're like, yeah,
the
now it's gone.
yeah,
Oh,
we need these pieces of paper to prove the reality of things, but on the other hand, it was actually done whether or not you have the piece of paper. So, well, anyway, okay. So we wanted to talk through some of them. We've talked through now defending women from gender ideology. What else did you want to talk about specifically?
restoring names that honor American
Oh,
greatness.
names. Okay.
Yes. The naming of our national treasures include breathtaking natural wonders and historic works of art, should honor the contributions of visionary and patriotic Americans in our nation's rich past.
Ooh, okay.
There's a lot in that. There's a lot in that paragraph right there. Patriotic Americans, our nation, we are a nation,
Mm.
has a rich past. We are not an economic zone. We're actually a nation of people
With a history and a
with a
story.
history and a
Yeah.
story. And we have national treasures, right? We are a nation. So that gets, yeah. So there's a board of geographic names I found out from this executive order. Kind of sounds similar to the board or the commission you were on, but
Well, we were
yeah.
so
So
this was an advisory committee for State Department.
yeah.
Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing he did, and this was big news, was changing Denali back to Mount McKinley, which I grew up calling it Mount McKinley
Mm-hmm.
in Alaska. It's the third largest, third or fourth largest mountain in the world. One of it's big, but so they said back in the 80s, I think no, it needs to have a native name because we stole that land. It's like nobody owned the mountain. I don't think the Indians that lived there, I don't think they saw themselves as owners of this mountain. They named it after McKinley because how do you put here? He Yeah, let's see, under McKinley, the United States enjoyed rapid economic growth, prosperity, including an expansion of territorial gains for the nation. That's one of the reasons they named that mountain after him, because he was also assassinated. So it was to honor a dead president.
Mm-hmm.
So it had meaning. People wanted him to be remembered, and that was a pretty good way to do it. You don't have to build a monument; it's right there. It's huge. So they named the mountain after him. The park is still called Denali. It's just the mountain that they changed back to McKinley, because I think the park was might have always been called Denali. But anyway, it includes. Here, President Obama's administration in 2015 stripped McKinley name from federal nomenclature. So it's later than I thought. I thought it was in the 80s. 2015. An affront to President McKinley's life, his achievements, and his sacrifice. Right, because he was killed in office.
Mm-hmm.
So this order honors President McKinley for giving his life for our great nation and dutifully recognizes his historic legacy of protecting America's interests and generating enormous wealth for all Americans. So they're changing that, but they're keeping the name of the park as Denali. And it also includes working with Alaska Native entities and state and local organizations to adopt names for landmarks to honor the history and culture of the Alaskan people. The Alaskan people, right? Again, this is a people. This is a real people. It's not an economic zone. Mm-hmm. It's not a tourist spot. These are real people with a real history, and they're part of our history because we're family. We're Americans. I don't belong to their tribe, but we're both Americans. One of
the orders was to recognize the Lumbee tribe, right?
That's in North Carolina. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And which is wonderful, because there are a lot of people who belong to different tribes that don't have federal recognition, and I think they get some rights that go along with recognition. So a lot of them a lot of the tribes seek to get that, and they don't have it. And a lot of that was because during the early 20th century, mostly, I think, a lot of them, I don't know the history well enough. So anybody out there, please correct me, because I love history. But a lot of the tribes they just kind of dissipated and they dissolved because they had to, like a lot of people, they had to leave to find work. There just wasn't any work, and they had lost. If they didn't have reservation land and they didn't have it because they weren't a recognized tribe, then they tended to lose their tribe. They tended to lose their history. So they tended to just move out and intermarry with other people, and then their culture just kind of got thinned out that way. The people who had reservations, even though a lot of them were horrible because they were, for the longest time, they weren't even allowed to leave it.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That hasn't been true since like 1947. But on the other hand, they still had land. And so their tribe actually kept together. So there are a lot of people and tribes out there that didn't have any land, and they didn't get federal recognition because of it. So I think they wanted to get this recognition that might have something to do with the land. I haven't read the order closely enough, but I think that was like the first step, is they get federal recognition as a tribe.
For the Lumbee, it says, known as the people of the Dark Water, the tribe's members were descendants of several tribal nations from the Algonquian, Iroquoian, and Siouan language families, more language, including the Heteras, the Tuscarora, and the Chiro. The waters of the Lumbee River and lands that surround it have protected and provided for the Lumbee people for centuries, despite war, disease, and many other perils. In 1885, the state of North Carolina recognized the Lumbee people as an Indian tribe. In 1956, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the Lumbee Act, which recognized the Lumbee as the Lumbee Indians of North Carolina, but denied Lumbee Indians federal benefits associated with such recognition. Today, according to the state of North Carolina, the Lumbee tribe consists of more than 55,000 members, making it the largest tribe east of the Mississippi River. That surprised me, actually.
That surprises me, too, because I would think the Seminole were still fairly large, because that Seminole just means Indian. So there were different tribes that were called,
and there's subsets.
Collectively called Seminole. Yeah.
And it's the 9th largest tribe in the nation. Some of the order is simply recognizing an act that's actually been passed, but it wasn't. Okay. It was passed in 2024.
Who dropped the ball on that? I mean, it's recognized by the
Um,
state in 1955, and
it
that's a long
wasn't
time to wait.
considered before it wasn't brought before the Senate in time. So
Okay,
they've said they'll recognize,
six
give federal
decades.
recognition, and that, hope that the Senate finishes. Um, but the Okay, so this is taking us off on a place that I hadn't planned for. My husband actually knows some of these things, because he works in the museum world. And one of the things that actually the tribes needed in order to define themselves as tribes was a distinct culture. So it's a
Yeah,
chicken and egg problem, right? If they don't have
yeah,
the distinct cultural
and which is hard to do
practices,
without land.
they can't get the recognition as a people.
Yeah,
And the thing is, I think I'm curious because one of the things about apparently the birthright EO has
yeah.
gotten tangled up in the status of the tribes, right? Because they're saying the tribes don't have the same recognition as citizenship, at
But
least
they have
not
since
originally.
1947.
Okay, so they've been recognized since 90, but originally they back in the with the 14th Amendment came in,
Yeah.
they didn't, right?
No, they did. They
So
didn't. They weren't. They couldn't. It was in the 1940s that they got the right to citizenship
to be
and full voting
citizens,
rights.
right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise they were sort of like, well, I mean, they were defeated people, bluntly, right? Because of the
Yeah.
wars, and they were given the idea of reservation is that this space set apart, right, on federal land, not part of the states,
Right. Well,
because
they're
they're
called nations.
under the federal government, not the states.
Yeah.
And all the Navajo, the Diné, the people that showed up to help in LA, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
Beautiful.
the nations have, I mean, the ones in the Southwest have very clear identity, but they're still on the land. They're still on their own land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard to keep your culture if you don't have your land, because people gather together on the land and they stay on the land and they get married and they stay on the land, right?
That's kind of a lesson
That's
in all of these cultural stories, isn't
it
it?
is, especially America's story over the
Yes.
past half century,
Right.
because people moved so much that the culture, I don't want to say it changed, it kind of got diluted, right? You could say, well, we
Those
enriched each
those
other.
interstate highways, eh?
Yeah.
They made it so
Well,
easy to move around.
yeah, you can enrich people with your culture, but they can also just reject it because it's foreign to them, you know? And I'm talking about moving from state to state, you know.
Yes,
I saw
exactly.
I
We've
saw
lost, I
King,
mean, we've lost a lot of our Americanness,
yeah,
interestingly, in your my lifetime, because people are so mobile, and
yes.
we've lost our identity. It's like okay, I'm going to keep waving this because it's cool to show off. But that I am Rachel Fulton Brown of Illinois, right?
That's cool.
In
It
these,
makes you sound like a princess. It's really cool.
the federal things that there's, I noticed this in some of the one of my friends from the university is given, where is that? It's hard to okay, guys, it's on the website if you want to follow where we're trying to figure out where we are. Here's President Trump saying you, right? And if you go to the White House page, whoops, if I go to, how do I interact with the White House page? Go to the White House page, you go to news, and you go to presidential actions. Yes, that's what we're looking at. So they're all here.
Mm-hmm. There's a
Yes,
lot.
and they're a lot, and they're
I,
the newer ones are on the front page, and so you have to go back through. But
mhm.
most of them, there's 6 pages of them now, and most of them were signed on
Yeah,
the same day.
yeah. There was like 5 or 6 that were signed today. Yeah, I'll have to go
Actually,
back
I
and look.
feel like they
They're
rearranged
coming.
themselves. This is confusing.
They're coming fast and furious.
Yes,
It's hard to keep
it's
up with
very
them,
hard to keep up with them.
which is, and considering the things he is passing, it's very nice. Yeah.
Okay, there was one that was a list of people. Where is that? Is
A list of
yeah, it's
people.
the President's Council on Advisors on Science and Technology. I don't think that was it.
Oh, I think it is on the first page. I think I did see that. I think I saw a
The
list.
list. Okay, I think
Unless
they're
it was, it might
I
have been
think
in
they're
one, unless it
moving
was
them
in one of the
around. I
proclamations.
frankly I think they're moving them around.
Yeah, I think that actually, I think that might have been in one of the proclamations. Because I actually skimmed through a lot of them until I recognized a pattern for this, what I recognized, what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in one of those. So they were mostly executive orders, but there were also some proclamations and at least one memoranda of understanding. So I think the distinction is that the executive orders almost have the force of law.
Mm-hmm.
And the memoranda is just, hey, heads up, we're going to be doing this. Get your stuff together
Oh
so
yeah,
we can discuss it.
they
Kind of like
have
that.
different kinds of
Yeah.
all right. So maybe where
Like
did I
for
see
instance,
this?
flying the flag at full staff on inauguration day. That was actually I did include that one here because it also had to do with language. That was lovely. That was just a proclamation. It's like going forward on every inauguration day, the flags will be at full staff. And then they made a point of saying, in honor of the death of President Carter, they will go back to half staff for the remainder of the 30 days, because that's tradition. Is the 30 days is an official period of mourning.
Oh, so they just had them on the. Okay, so I found a
Right.
list, which is what I was wanting to show. That this is a list of President Trump announces sub-cabinet appointments, and if you look at them, ooh, there's Jay Bhattacharya. If you look at them, they're all by state, right? So Keith Baths of Texas to be an Assistant Secretary of Defense. Jayanta Bhattacharya, that's Jay Bhattacharya, the epidemiologist who
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
right, Jayanta Bhattacharya of California to be director of the National Institutes of Health. James Bishop of North Carolina to be deputy director of the Office of Management and Budget, and so forth. We're of the states, right? So and so
Yes.
of the state, right? And it's funny because the other ways you would think of Bhattacharya is Jayanta Bhattacharya of Stanford University, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
no, he's of California because
California.
when we're
Yeah,
given
that's
the federal appointments, it's because of where the state that we're coming from.
yes, because the power comes from the people through their states.
Right,
That's how the federal government gets its power. It's from us.
right.
So flying the flag of the United States at full staff on Inauguration Day. I love the way this was worded. In honor of Inauguration Day and everything good and noble that it represents about our nation, our people, and our form of government. I hereby order that on this and all future inauguration days, the flag of the United States shall be flown at full staff. I just love the way that was worded because it talks about our nation and our people,
Right.
right? And it talks about it being a noble thing to do. And I don't think I've ever heard that word used in reference to our people. We are a people or our country. Very, very strong language. Very, very strong. Well, he said America first, and people think that's
Everything good and noble that it represents. Inaugurate. So it's the day. Everything good and noble that it represents about our nation, our people, and our
Right.
form of government. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was. I was written in a beautiful way. He uses America first all the time, and leftists dismiss it as, I guess, jingoism, and other people just think it's a nice thought, but there's a lot more descriptive, noble thought that went into this. What does that actually mean? And all of these EOs are describing our people and our nation and our culture and language and the fact that words mean something and that the people mean something, right? That we are a people, not an economic zone. That's important because since the Clinton administration, maybe even since George H.W. Bush, we've been being pushed into international trade, and our people have been looked at as human capital. And I don't like that phrase at all because it sounds like cattle.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what
that is. That capital is the stuff of industry, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're counting heads, capital. You're counting it. You're just a head. Just 1, 2, 3. How many of you have I got?
Right.
We're not individuals. We're not a people. We're not a group. We're heads. Yeah, lines on a ledger. It's not nice. So to read this language, it's really a feast for the eyes for me when I'm looking at this. It's beautiful. I never thought I would say that about reading through government orders, but yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, that's what I've been entertained by. It's like suddenly all of us know so much more about the government than we have ever, right? That I never paid attention to,
which is a good thing.
which is
right?
a very
Because
good thing. These are our people, right? But that
Yes.
I sorry, whenever I go to the menu, I can't seem to go back the way I'm playing this. I have to keep, anyway, don't worry. Guys, I'm sorry. That, you know, I've noticed myself, you know, we were all massively aware of all the cabinet picks. I mean, much more.
Yeah.
I can't even, I had to like think about it when I'm reading who signed this, right? I'm pretty sure it says by the president. It looks like it says Pompeo.
It probably was. Yeah. Yeah.
But I am Pompeo. Okay, so something like that, right? And you know that I never in my life, maybe when Clinton was Secretary of State and bombing Libya, right, and being delighted about it, I paid attention to it. But it's suddenly like we're worrying about Pete Hegseth's confirmation. Sean Duffy's confirmation seems to have been going. Marco Rubio is Secretary of State. I'm like, this is like NFL picks, which I don't pay attention to. Right?
That's true.
But you're suddenly paying attention to the list, right? It's the draft, and oh look, there's my I couldn't find Casey Mulligan's. He's on this list somewhere, right? Of Illinois, who's one of my fellow faculty members at the University of Chicago, and oh, he's on the list, right? I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I'm paying attention to, which is, the irony of it being that we want the federal government to decrease in size.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in fact, also make it personal and faces who have responsibility for the things that they're being appointed to rather than faceless bureaucrats.
See, I think it was when George W. Bush first got into office. Previous to that, there had been serious talk about ending the IRS because of their tactics of auditing little guys, right? It was audits by the pound, right? How many people can we audit? It makes me look good. Maybe I get a bonus. I don't know. Anyway, they're pushed to audit lots of people.
Right.
You don't audit the big guys because they've got big lawyers and it's just a big hassle and they're not going to get anything. So you go after the little guy. People complained so much that there were hearings in Congress to get rid of the IRS. And so the IRS promised, like an abusive spouse, we promise, we're going to be better this time. And they actually were. They actually were helpful. And I can't remember why I had to speak to the IRS. I went to speak to the IRS about something, and they had a walk-up counter where you could just go ask questions. And there was an old guy there. He was retired, and he just looked really happy to be helping people because I think he retired from the IRS, and he was so happy that he could actually be helpful and not have people hate him.
Yes.
He was trying to give them information. It was really sweet. So I think we're about to experience something similar based upon the talk of getting rid of the income tax that Trump's been talking about.
Oh, that would be that would be amazing.
It would be amazing. Talk about relief to every individual. That'd be wonderful.
Well, so I mean, this what you're just saying I think was something I was hoping we could figure out. It's like, in fact, our government should not be our enemy.
No, it shouldn't.
Our government should be ourselves. And I can think of a lot of people who say, I mean, certainly out of academia, right? They want to go into public service because they want to be of help. And, what we're dealing with is as you said, the compassion overwhelming the actual being helpful. It's well, I'm going to tell you what to do for your own good, as opposed to I'm here to serve you and help you, have a functioning community.
Right. So they used to be called civil servants. Mm-hmm. And I think the word servant got such a bad word. They said, we're just going to call them employees now. And then somewhere along the line, they said, now we're going to call them human capital.
Well, that's all of us, not just the government part. Yeah.
No, they were more human when they were calling them servants. Like, there's nothing wrong with serving people. It is service, right?
Right.
It's the civil service. You're supposed to be serving your fellow citizens.
Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not demeaning.
So, funny thing I learned about Saul Alinsky. So I've been reading Jane Jacobs' book on cities, right? The Death and Life of American Cities. And she thanks Saul Alinsky in that book.
Eeks.
Yes.
Ugh.
And no, but okay, now, so what's interesting,
I don't like that.
I know, but what's interesting about it is she's talking about when she's living in New York City and she's living in Greenwich, around Greenwich Village, and she's talking about the way in which the districts of the city, she says not neighborhoods, the neighborhood is kind of the wrong category to put things in, but these city districts needed to figure out how to organize, get the community organizer label, organize in order to bring their complaints to the city government, right? And that this is for our big cities, which she calls our great cities, like New York or Chicago or LA or, any of our mega, she calls them great cities, right? And she's writing in the 60s that on the one hand, she has a very strong understanding of the liveliness of the street. It's a whole thing. I want Sean Duffy, John, if you're listening, to hear about this, because he's going to be Secretary of Transportation, right? It's like our streets, the public space is, all of these thoroughfares that we participate in. And rather than having, one of the things she says that these living spaces in a city need streets with an active life. They need clear distinction between the public and private, and they need eyes. You need actually people seeing different, throughout the day. I think of it as like the neighborhood I live in is actually good like this. So it's like, in the morning there are people going to school, and midday there are people, walking around because people are going to class, or, people have a lot of different time scales that they're working on. I walk my dog at different times of the day. I see different people in the day. It's like you need the eyes watching the street all the time, not just at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, right? Because people don't feel safe when there's nobody around because nobody's watching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to actually do a really good stream fully on cities. But so that's good at the street level. And then you have the city level, the mayor government that, for example, Karen Bass really should have been better at it in LA. Although she's on the other side. I need to find out more about her Marxist, activism and things like that. So there's something in between the street level and the city level, and it was these district organizing that, in fact, apparently Saul Alinsky got a start in, and they were effective in bringing workingmen complaints to the attention of the city. Donald Trump must know about some of this because this is New York, right? She's describing New York in the 60s and how they managed to organize subsets of the city to bring, one, they saved Washington Park and Greenwich Village from being driven through by roads. Like, Chicago could have used some of that because we had all of those freeways, shoot through all of the Catholic communities. And so, St. John Cantius is on one side and all of these other great Polish Catholic churches are on the other side of the freeway, right?
Yeah,
the freeways went right through the middle of all of these areas.
I took the train through that to the airport, and I was like, wow, it just cut everything in half. And I guess I haven't delved into this far enough, but it's like Alinsky was apparently part. I mean, it's like, talk about corrupting something that was originally for good purposes, right? That whatever Obama did, learning how to do community organizing, that turned it into Marxist, subversion of our. Well, maybe it always
system.
was, though, because when you talk about the community, there were unions that always did that, right? And there were people that would show up at public meetings. You didn't need an organizer for that. People do not need an organizer to complain,
So this is our problem now. As we've been talking, we've touched on a lot of things. I hope everybody's taking notes. At the level of the tribes, at the level of the states, at the level of our cities, at the level of who we are as American. I mean, which is one of these, it's one of them, the one that's getting all the people on the planes and taking them home right now.
Yes,
right, the illegal, the people who are not here under our agreement.
538 the last time I saw the counter. Somebody put up a counter, and it might have been, did Tom Homan himself do that? I'm not sure, but yeah, they're military flights. So people said, "Oh, it's too expensive. You can't do that." I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the plane engines roaring right now.
Well,
speak a little louder.
Here we have, is it declaring the The national emergency of the southern border. That's part of
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah,
So talk about
that was part
McKinley.
of
If
it. Yeah.
McKinley was involved in the Spanish-American War, that's our southern
Yeah.
border, right? So the
I actually
definition of
saw
our border, um,
I actually saw a monument to the soldiers in the Spanish American War. There were only two Americans that died, and it was heat stroke in the Philippines, on the deck of a ship because there were metal. But it was a very short war. But it was in Seattle in a park in, gosh, I think it's Wallingford. And if anybody knows Seattle, you'd be like, what? I mean, they're leftists if they come, and yet there's the actual war memorial there
to the
to the
Spanish-American
to
War.
the Spanish American War, yes, which lasted what, a month, like 5 weeks.
I
It was
don't.
ridiculously short.
I heard an interesting talk about Puerto Rico and it's being taken over, and in that period, and it had to do with
Yes,
church architecture. So that I was like, okay, we need to know more about our
oh,
history
that
100
reminds
years
me.
ago and our relationship with the Spanish, for sure,
Okay,
right?
I
However, it is true that we have a
no,
border, and you need borders to be able to negotiate all of these kinds of things, because
yeah,
having the people not. I like how you've read all of these orders and say they're trying to define America. I mean, talking about making America great again, it's like,
yes.
let's find out where it is first.
Right. Well, they're reminding people that there is this nation called America, and they do call it our republic
Right.
in these documents, not our democracy.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not
Yes.
going to get angry. Okay.
You're allowed a little bit. It's,
It's a republic, and it does make a difference. All right. Anyway, you brought up architecture. So one of them was promoting beautiful federal civic architecture.
mm.
This is a memoranda for the administrator of the GSA. It says it needs to respect regional, traditional, and classic architectural heritage in order to uplift and beautify public spaces and ennoble, there's that word again,
Mm-hmm.
the United States and our system of self-government. So a lot of the things I'm seeing in the language here is, yeah, again, heritage. Yes, we have one.
Right.
Yes, we do. Right. And ennoble, and this repeated theme of our system of self-government is a big part of our culture.
Right.
When people say it's the American experiment, it's like, it's not an experiment, it's a real country. And our real country is one of representative self-governance. It's a republic. And that matters. That means something. And here's a document saying, and our architecture needs to reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to take into account classical, traditional, and regional architectural history. So
Right.
this is wonderful. Now you posted a picture recently of, was it in somewhere in Tennessee? There was a 5-year difference. They took down these very
Oh,
ugly
Vanderbilt. Yeah,
Vanderbilt
they
University
rebuilt their
built.
university. So yes, our universities
Yes.
are a very important element of our architecture nationally.
Mm-hmm.
And that Vanderbilt,
Yeah.
they've rebuilt their dorms so that they're recovering the collegiate Gothic style, or that looked
It's,
sort of Tudor, and is like a Hampton Court kind of.
it reminded me of Princeton, actually.
Well, they did it
Yeah.
too, yeah. And
Right.
of course, the
Yeah.
University of Chicago, we're all Northern Gothic, so
Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful. And part of that heritage does go back to the original universities in England and
hmm
in Europe, right?
right.
Like Oxford, Cambridge, the original monasteries, right? So,
Well, we have a tower that's modeled on a tower at Oxford, a Magdalen
that's
College
cool.
tower. Yeah,
That's nice.
you can pretend to be C.S. Lewis if you look out the window, because
Yeah,
it
I'm
was his
disappointed that
college.
you told me I can't get into the Bodleian Library. Even if my son
It's
thinks me a
harder than you
genius.
think. There's a whole bunch of libraries that you can walk into the New York Public Library. That's talk about
I
public civic
know, but
architecture.
it
It's
doesn't look as
Oh,
cool.
it's very cool. Have you been to the reading room in the New York Public Library? Oh my
No,
gosh, I fainted. I
no.
used, okay, talking about it's like uplift and beautify public spaces. I mean, certainly Trump has
Yeah.
been great he loves buildings. I mean,
Yeah,
of
yes, he
all of the
does.
things that I
Yeah.
like about Donald Trump, it's like he loves buildings.
He loves beauty,
He loves
doesn't
beauty,
he?
but he likes beautiful
Yeah.
buildings a lot. So
Yeah.
he's a
Yeah.
builder, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
I
he
was
has
I
an
was
eye for
reading
it.
Twitter has all these things on. I think I saw a thread on how Mar-a-Lago became what it is now, right? This sort of
Oh yeah, I
palatial
saw that too.
space for him to that he bought it. Well, he did a sort of speculating thing. He bought the waterfront, and then it forced them to sell the house because
Ah,
they couldn't get the price that they wanted.
that was smart.
So yes, he's going to outwit you.
Ruthless but smart.
He's
Yeah.
going to figure out a way to make, the first move, second move,
Yeah.
and then he made it an exclusive club, and by making it exclusive, he like suddenly was able to like charge all these rental prices for it, and that's how it became. So he's really good at taking the thing and making it desirable. Right. So hopefully
He
what
did
he's
that.
doing
He
is
did that
making the
to
United States desirable again.
he did that to New York City itself. He
Right.
did in the
Right.
80s with his construction projects. People forget that. Um,
Well, I
yeah,
was
so now he's
there at
trying to do it to the
Columbia
country,
in,
and I'm here for it.
1988 to I started at Columbia as a graduate student in 1988. So
Mhm.
New York was it was still on its way back up at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw it was 1985, and it
Mm.
was only brief, way too brief. I kept trying to get back to visit it, and it's I'm not going anywhere near it until they get cleaned up now. But I think the sweet spot was in the mid 90s. That would have
Yes.
been just
Yes.
perfect. But I have seen the Library of Congress, and it is stunning.
I haven't
It's
seen that.
absolutely beautiful.
I meant to get there. So when I went for our meeting in July 2022, I went and I looked at the Capitol. I couldn't get in. I was too late. But I'd never actually seen the Capitol building, so we went up to the Capitol,
Ah,
and I saw it faces the Supreme Court and the Library of Congress, right?
yes, right.
And I meant to go back the next time I was on the committee for the Library of Congress, and then they
Oh,
kicked me off. So,
well, it's not going anywhere.
and I have a friend who works there, so like I was going to go have a proper
Oh,
visit at the Library of Congress, right? And that didn't
yeah.
happen.
I took a tour, and I mean, it's probably a good thing I didn't do this, because if I go into an old bookstore or a library with a lot of old books, you're going to have to drag me out. I will just keep browsing and keep pulling old books off the shelf and just gawking at them. I just love old stuff. I just love old books. You have to sign up to get a reading card, a library card there. You can do it, but it takes a month, and I didn't know that. So when we took my tour, I said, "Can I just go?" And they went, "Nope, sorry."
So did you
Please
see the
come
reading
back, you
room?
know.
Did you get to see the rotunda
Uh,
in the library?
well, I took a tour. I took a tour of it, so I was in the main part of it, and I saw some of the smaller rooms, and I
Okay.
just remember it was really beautiful, and it had a lot of very fine detail in the ceilings and in the moldings, and yeah, it kind of reminds me of one of those really old European libraries that are in some of the monasteries or palaces. They're gorgeous.
So
It's
we should have this kind
yeah,
of architecture nationally, right?
yes, yeah,
It's entirely appropriate to have magnificent, iconic
of
buildings
course, yeah,
for our
and
nation.
yeah, in our in
Whether
our
they
in
should
our
all look
history.
like, pagan temples is another matter.
I have no problem with that, because a big part of our culture, most of the people that came here were European, and
Oh
so
no,
that's a
I
big
said
part of European
pagan.
culture.
I'm fine with them being European. I just wonder whether they should be pagan.
Hey, if it's good enough for the church, it's good enough for me. They took over the pagan temples and turned them into churches, so because it's beautiful architecture, right?
Well, okay, so as I understand it, a lot of it's Masonic, right? So all the conspiracy theorists can get on that
Yeah,
one.
it is
But
Masonic,
it's
but I don't
also,
care. It's pretty.
as
Sorry, go
Republican,
ahead.
apparently a lot of the modeling was thinking about Venice too. So we can maybe
Ah,
go there.
oh, Venice would be easy. It's fun to talk about. Yeah.
Right. But to say, so this order is saying it's like we should have beautified public spaces and noble United States in our system of self-government. And it is incredible. It is accurate to say we don't have this. I mean, so again, we're watching someone who understands the power of beauty, the power of ritual, the power of
Yes.
language. I mean, never mind all the power of negotiation and trolling people. Right? It's
And he is brilliant at that. Trollmaster Trump.
absolutely troll master too. But I mean, he's trolling in this context with all of these um recognitions, right?
Mm.
This has been more free flowing than I thought we were going to do, but have we gone? Let's look through them carefully. Okay, I'm starting with the back, page 6, right? President Trump announces cabinet level appointments. President Trump announces sub-cabinet appointments. President Trump announces acting cabinet and cabinet level positions. President Trump designates chairman and acting chairman. Okay, so that's all if you go through all of these and look at the names and you say, okay, now we are going to know who is in charge. And we probably could have done this before. I'm not sure. I never looked. But it's good to have this sense of we should be paying attention. And we should be paying attention to the people in these positions and to.
Well, luckily, see, the people in the positions previously over the past 4 years acted so despicably bad that we were all now paying attention. Who's doing it?
We're all
Who's
paying attention now. Yes. And
because it matters.
Is Rachel Fulton Brown of Illinois going to get her? I don't know, right? Trust me.
You have your beautiful scroll, and I have a tiny little email saying, "You're welcome to your tour of the Oval Office," which was unfortunately canceled. So I kept the email because it came from the White House. It said from the White House. So a friend of mine had a relative who was in the Marine Corps. And he was working in that area of the White House for out of detail, and he got her some tickets to go take a tour of the Oval Office. And I'm like, oh, great! So she asked me, and I can't wait. I love it, right? And so the day before I'm supposed to fly out to Washington, it got canceled. Oh. And I already booked my ticket. So I said, I'll just come out there. We'll have fun. That's when I took my tour of the and I'd been to Washington many, many times before, but I'd never been to the Library of Congress. So I took a tour of that, but I kept the email. But I was so disappointed. It was right after Trump got inaugurated because I was really surprised. This is in early 2017. I was really surprised. And I remember telling my friend this, but I'm surprised the tour is still going on. Right. Because usually when a president comes in, they have to kind of settle things, deal with like even redecorating, right. Or just different security, different people get assigned to different places. And I had to go through a small background investigation just to even get a tour of the Oval Office, and but I kept my email. I still have it.
I saw a TikToker or tuber or something like that saying, when the president's working, there's a Marine on guard. Is that so outside the office?
Oh, yeah, probably.
And so he's like, there's someone there all the time right now because he's down at the desk signing, right?
Right.
The thing is, he signed most of these the first day. I'm not sure what he's signing now. So we're paying attention, right? So we did the flying the flag.
Yes.
Initial rescissions of harmful executive orders and actions. That being,
I thought those were probably related to all of the transgender Title IX stuff. So I didn't actually go through those ones.
Okay, well, it's a long list, right? They just abolished a whole bunch of executive orders.
I would have to go and look up the old EOs to do that. And
strengthening American leadership in clean cars and trucks. Catalyzing clean energy industries and jobs through federal sustainability. Wow, there's a lot of them. Continuing to strengthen Americans' access to affordable quality health coverage. All of these are gone. So
all those are misnamed too. Yeah.
It's a really long list. Wow. So they just they just wiped out all of the previous executive orders.
Well, guess what? He's got a pen too.
Yeah. So we had a bit of discussion in the Telegram chat about who started all this executive order stuff.
Oh, right. That would be Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, apparently the Emancipation Proclamation was one.
That's true. Yeah.
So Lincoln, didn't free the slaves with his executive order of 1863 because he only freed the ones in the territories that weren't part of the nation. Complicated stuff. That had to do with, because of the territories that were going to be coming in. Right. No, it's during the war, and it was an act of, he was using it as an act of aggression against the Confederates.
It was an act of aggression to say people
against the secessionists because it didn't free the slaves in the Union still.
But were there any slaves in the Union states? Where were they illegal in the Union?
Good question. This is the Ask Razorfist. He did all of that. I know.
Yeah, I'll have to, well, he doesn't, he gets almost everything right. I think he was wrong about a couple of things, but
Well,
I
anyway,
didn't
the
see that one, so
Emancipation
it's not that
Proclamation.
one.
In one of his rants, actually his long one on Lincoln, he talks about how the Emancipation Proclamation didn't actually apply to any slaves at all because it didn't apply to the ones that were still in the Union, and it was meant to be used against the ones if they were like, I think okay, so it's a little bit like Innocent the Third declaring all of the vassals, or no, maybe not Innocent the Third, Gregory the Seventh declaring all of Henry the Fourth's vassals absolved of their oaths of fealty. It's whether you recognize his jurisdiction, and since the secessionists, the Confederates, had left the Union, technically the Emancipation Proclamation didn't apply to anybody.
That sounds like a distinction without a difference.
Well, okay,
sure.
so it's complicated, right? But anyway, so
yeah, I'd have to read about
Lincoln
that.
used the executive order, and maintaining the Union, or militarily recovering the Union, creates the kind of administrative executive that we now have, right? And it's just been building. So yeah,
Well,
Roosevelt does it. I mean, FDR clearly did it, right? Isn't that what the New Deal stuff? Was that a lot of executive orders?
I don't know. That I don't know. I haven't read about that at all. I did.
I mean, I know it's
I know
FDR creates the big administrative state that we have.
Well, he created Social Security Administration, and he created the Securities and Exchange Commission, probably some other things too. Securities and Exchange Commission is pretty small, but the Social Security Administration is not, and it probably spawned a whole bunch of other little bureaus and offices that relate to it in some way.
Well, no, I mean all the New Deal stuff.
Yeah,
it's
that's
interesting.
Social Security.
People
Part of it.
It's bigger than that, right? It was. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as my mother is concerned, the federal government is good, right? It created like all of the work projects.
Baby?
1938. All right, so she's a bit.
She doesn't remember it though.
It doesn't matter. Her parents did. So she grew up with, she loved Eleanor Roosevelt. She has a sense that, right, to which I think she's always voted Democrat. I'm not quite sure. It's hard to tell. She's in Texas. It's complicated. But one of her aunt's friends, you were talking about when you got to go to Washington, one of my mother's aunt's friends was the personal secretary of LBJ.
Oh, wow.
And when we went to Washington when we were kids, because my mother was doing some training in DC as a physician, we stayed at the Watergate in the friend's apartment.
Isn't that the ugliest building? I'm sorry. Speaking of ugly architecture.
Now that we're off topic. The thing is, I think a lot of people my mother's age, right, they have affection for the government because as far as they remember, it was the government that was taking care of everything in the 30s.
And it was also the government making them feel like, hey, we're all in this together, right? During the war and then during the Korean War and, then, like the Vietnam War, people started getting real tired of it.
And then they watched MASH. No, we'll talk about MASH some other time. So the thing is, the reality of the executive orders. I mean, if you look at the initial rescissions, it's a long list. It's.
Well, that was Barack Obama saying, "I have a pen and a phone," and everybody goes, hey. He's really smug about it. It's like, so does
the next president. So does the next guy.
Mean?
I'm still scrolling, right? This is. Oh, look, there was an executive order 14084 of September 30th, 2022. Promoting the arts, the humanities, and museum and library services. That was about the time I was getting kicked off my committee.
Right. Was this drag queen story?
No, that's a previous one. That's advancing equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex individuals. That was in June 2022.
I'm sorry. When I hear intersex, I think of a fish.
Okay.
I do. It's like there's certain species.
May 9th, 2023. Moving beyond COVID. I'm going to keep going and therefore overwhelm you. Moving beyond COVID-19 vaccination. Moving beyond COVID-19 vaccination requirements for federal workers. Moving beyond.
Moving beyond? What does that mean?
October 30th, 2023. Safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence.
Well, thank goodness
who
it's safe,
knew?
secure, and
Right?
trustworthy.
It's like, look, people, we need to be paying
I'm glad
attention
they
to all
didn't
of
say
these. Now
untrustworthy
you know.
and
Now you know
unsafe
where the website is. You can keep paying attention to
Yeah.
all of these
I
orders.
have to say the orders were written in very plain language, and that
Yes.
itself is good. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh wow, there's 9 pages now. Wait, I'm confused.
It's still being added to. I'm
No,
sure.
no, I think it's still 6. I went to the wrong place. Okay. So okay, we're back at 6. So we have restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship.
Yes, that was a good one.
Shall we read that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have that one. Okay, if you can pull it up faster than me, that's good. No, I got it right here. Okay. First Amendment to the United States Constitution, an amendment essential to the success of, and I quote, our republic.
I'm enjoying your reading of these. You're really you're doing a good exegesis. Okay, freedom of speech.
Enshrines the right of the American people to speak freely in the public square without government interference. Over the last 4 years, the previous administration trampled free speech rights by censoring American speech on online platforms, often by exerting substantial coercive pressure on third parties, such as social media companies, to moderate, deplatform, or otherwise suppress speech that the federal government did not approve. Under the guise of combating, quote, misinformation, quote, disinformation, and, quote, malinformation, the federal government infringed on the constitutionally protected speech rights of American citizens across the United States in a manner that advanced the government's preferred narrative about significant matters of public debate. Government censorship of speech is intolerable in a free society. Yeah, that's the power sentence right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I copied there. I wanted to stress they repeated our republic. And
there's a theme here. There's a theme.
Right. There's a theme, and it's a free society. Again, back to we are a real people. Mm-hmm. We are a real nation. We have real rights, and our society is free, and that also defines us.
Right.
And our ability to express that defines us.
So we've restored the First Amendment. That's nice.
Yep.
I have to I'm not happy with how I can navigate in this situation, because every time I go in, I can't just back up. At least I can't figure out how to do it on this webpage that I'm streaming. Okay, ending the weaponization of the federal government.
I didn't do that one.
So here I like to be unweaponized. Okay.
You'd like the weapons from, yeah.
Well, no, it's like this is a third world. They used to, okay. The American people have witnessed the previous administration engage in a systematic campaign against its perceived political opponents, weaponizing the legal forces of numerous federal law enforcement agencies and the intelligence community against those perceived political opponents in the form of investigations, prosecutions, civil enforcement actions, and other related actions. These actions appear oriented more towards inflicting political pain than towards pursuing actual justice or legitimate government objectives. Many of these activities appear to be inconsistent with the Constitution and or the laws of the United States, including those activities directed at parents protesting at school board meetings.
Yeah.
Americans who spoke out against the previous administration's actions, and other Americans who were simply exercising constitutionally protected rights. The prior administration and allies throughout the country engaged in an unprecedented third world weaponization of prosecutorial power to upend the democratic process. It targeted individuals who voiced opposition to the prior administration's policies with numerous federal investigations and politically motivated funding revocations, which cost Americans access to needed services. The Department of Justice even jailed an individual for posting a political meme.
Yep.
And while the Department of Justice has ruthlessly prosecuted more than 1,500 individuals associated with January 6th and simultaneously dropped, and simultaneously dropped nearly all cases against BLM rioters. Oh,
Yes,
they
some people are
miswrote
more
it.
able than
I hope
others.
that's okay. Therefore, this order sets forth a process to ensure accountability for the previous administration's weaponization of the federal government against the American people.
I hope by accountability he means they're going to start prosecuting people who did this.
Um, so ending the weaponization, they're going to review the activities of the intelligent community. I spent all that time waxing on the I wish I could just figure out how to go back on this. It's the how OBS makes it look that can I go back? Ah, well, okay, no, I'm still stuck on starting over on the pages. All right. Sorry, gibber. Um,
I couldn't do it.
the It's interesting. Okay, so our law is supposed to be written. These aren't laws, right? These are executive orders, which is different from
Right.
legislation, right? But our law is
Hmm.
supposed to be written in plain language, which is interesting
Yes.
because I had for the longest time I thought, academia makes me think law is all complicated and difficult. Mainly, what's difficult is all the references, right? That they're constantly citing precedent. So
Hmm.
it's like it's this and that, and it's very medieval.
Right. And the people whose job it is to read these things, they're going to know it at a glance because they've already studied it. So.
Right. But I'm assuming, I mean, it's like the amount of nitpicking on the language on everything. I mean, it's actually good because it's like it's our magic spells and we have to be precise in our language. But then you end up in this situation where, well, how precise does precise mean? Right. That there's
Right.
layers.
There's 1,500 pages we're going to vote on in
Right.
3 hours.
Right.
Good luck.
Right.
Right.
I had
Hey, just
I
send
mean,
these for AI.
I know from your experience, you know more about this than I do probably. But I mean, even the stuff that we did on the Cultural Property Advisory Committee, and we're having to go through for the countries that the United States was negotiating with the Department of State, whether we would have a memorandum of understanding with them about instructing our customs officers to look for particular objects of cultural and ethnographic significance
Yeah,
for the
they
importing
already do
countries,
that.
right? But to do all
Yeah.
of that, there was a statute. I don't even know what the proper language is, right? The thing that established the committee gave it instructions on you have to establish this, and this, and it had to be these 4 conditions that needed to be met in order
Mhm.
for the country. It's like there had to be looting, there had to be cooperation from the country, there had to be like access. The country had to be giving access to Americans to do research and stuff like that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there was very specific. And when we went through the petitions, were they petitions? I don't even know what the language was. I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
It's like we had to go through and make sure that each of those conditions were met, and then our recommendation would be, are these conditions met? Are there things that we want to put on the list? Blah 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 blah. But it was interesting to me how the process
Mhm.
mattered, and it was actually reassuring. It's like some countries we got incredibly well prepared reports, particularly from countries that had practice with that kind of preparation of reports, and then others that
Mhm.
clearly didn't know how to put them together, even though they'd had help probably from
So
our
this
staff.
was for the purpose of bringing artifacts here.
It was for the purpose of restricting imports to help them combat the market, right? It's like they didn't if they're
Right.
looting stuff from tombs or archaeological digs or landscapes, and
Yeah, that
it was to cut off some of the sale possibilities
I see. Yeah.
to help them
Well, I mean,
protect their cultural property.
I didn't get to work on that. So a long time ago, like 3 decades ago, I worked for what was then the U.S. Customs Service,
Mm,
and they had import specialist teams that specialized in antiquities, and
okay.
that would have been the coolest job ever. So I didn't actually ever get to look at. It would have been really because I mean you go to these people's desks and they've got art books on their shelves and
Right.
they keep apprised of whatever country it is they're assigned to, and so I it's a fair bet to say they had a lot of procedures in place to look for that stuff, and they did work with other countries. So they had
Oh
the
yeah.
U.S. Customs
Yeah.
Service is over 200 years old, and they had a pretty long history of doing this kind of thing.
Oh no, it
So
was all very well in place,
yeah,
and it was interesting because I mean we were as the committee advising from different perspectives, right? Academia, museums, and trade, right? So people that actually
yeah,
buy
right,
and sell in the antiquities, and it was both antiquities and ethnographic. So it could be archaeological or it could be
right.
current, more recent objects. Uh,
Hmm.
it was fun being on the committee because we got to see examples of all of the things that people were concerned
Oh
about.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, not, we
yeah,
saw
very
pictures of
cool.
them. And of course, I am
Yeah.
vague about all of this because when I was taken off the committee, I had to destroy all the stuff that I had, right? It's like you weren't allowed, this is confidential stuff,
Oh
so I
right,
can't keep
right.
it. So I mean,
Yeah.
all the stuff I learned is gone.
That's all up here.
It's
You
all
got it.
sort of up here, right? I don't have any of
Somewhere,
it.
it's in there somewhere.
It's, well, only it's like as a practice. And so I recognize it gave me respect for for certainly for us meeting with these countries as the representatives of the United States. I'm like, wow, this really matters, right?
It does.
It
It
matters a
does matter.
lot that you are
And
representing the
yeah.
United States in a respectful fashion to also the countries that we're talking to. And they were delightful, right? All of the countries that we met with, and I mean it was on Zoom, but their groups of experts would talk to us, and they were
Mhm.
great. They were always like really, really,
Well, sure. The kind of people like yourself that are attracted to this,
yeah.
they love history. They love it. They love artifacts, and they love talking about it. And
Right,
and it's their own country's, heritage. They love talking about that.
right.
We made cultural ambassadors. These people are perfect for this because they truly love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would love to have been on one of those import specialist teams. That would have been really, really cool.
But I mean, this is a nice demonstration. It's like it mattered that we were countries, right? There's their
Yes.
country talking to our country about exchanges between our countries,
Yeah.
America. We're Americans are mutts. I will stand by that. Till the cows come home. We are mutts. We are mixes of lots of different people, but we are something real too, right? America is an
Yes.
actual identity. And I've
Yeah.
seen that in a variety of contexts in which I lived. Okay, so my history, right? I studied in England for when I was in my graduate work. I'm American. I'm not English, right? I've fenced for the United States in Germany against other national countries. We're not white is not a category, right? We are
No.
ourselves an entity, and definitely Americans are mixtures of lots of different cultures. But what you're finding in these EOs and in our, you know, trying to figure out what's pass through back through them, right? That they are trying to accomplish. Um,
They're
there's
reinforcing.
something that is actually America,
Yeah, they're reinforcing that we're an actual republic, that we have a heritage,
right?
we have culture. It's very regional. Some of it's indigenous, some of it's not, but it's all American.
Right.
And that's reinforced again and again. And the 20% of the ones that I looked through that have been signed so far. Right.
Yeah, presumably well, I mean, it was good that they got all of these out right off the block because we have securing our borders,
That's a big one. That's a big one. And yeah, I
protecting the
just,
meaning and value of American citizenship, realigning the United States
yep.
refugee admissions program, unleashing American energy. You're right. America
Yeah.
first trade policy. It's America.
Protecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the United States on along our national borders.
So
So
go into that one. Yeah.
yeah, because I'm acting in accordance with my solemn duty to protect and defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the United States along our national borders. Because again, we're not an economic zone.
Mm-hmm.
Letting in millions of people because you say, well, I don't want to name names, but some famous, very spoiled, wealthy people have said terrible things about illegal aliens
Mhm.
and legal immigrants. Like, well, who are you going to get to scrub your toilets, right? And as people have been pointing out,
That's what that bishop was saying at the prayer breakfast.
yeah,
I mean, and Avita did a really nice coverage on this, saying exactly
yeah,
why whenever you hear this kind of thing, is it about, well,
who's going to pick your cotton if you free your slaves? It's the same argument from the 19th century.
Yep.
And you are on the wrong side of history, woman, if you are preaching that from your pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have put enough thought into this.
I mean, she did sound very, what the Southern arguments about saying we take good care of our slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look at what a good person I am, right?
Because I take good care of my slaves. I mean, it's an interesting sort of problem, because we do need a better, sort of culture. The usually a powerful argument is because there's elements of truth in it, as Rob was telling us last week. Intelligence is God is godlike.
Yes.
Right. That was very important to remember. So compassion is obviously virtuous, and caring for the poor and caring for the workers. But how? Right. And that Trump, he's today when he was in North Carolina and getting the people to talk about how they've been abandoned by their insurance, caring caring for the people of the country is actually compassionate too.
Yeah, it is. It is compassionate. And, false compassion is choosing your preferred poor.
Your preferred poor. The preferred poor.
Yes, I prefer these poor over here, not those poors over there.
Well, the poor that live in your neighborhood and whom you're embarrassed by. I don't want to be. I'm so embarrassed that they're Americans. It's
clinging to their guns and their religion, right? Sound familiar? This elitism has infected this country for too long. And you and Rob and I were joking about, at the end of our stream last week, we're joking about Trump and the way, as Rob said, we have the worst elites. We really do. They're just really terrible. They're terrible people. And they
one
hate
of them.
Trump.
Come on, get over it. I mean, in the horrible, academic elite.
I mean, he's talking about rich people.
Yeah, the actual power people, right? The ones with enough money to buy senators or states.
They see Trump coming into their clubs. Who let him in? They're basically.
Well, he made his own club, and then they all wanted to pay.
Right.
It's so fascinating watching Zuckerberg want to be there now. Yes.
He's Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. This is the way they look at him.
Yes.
He just comes in boorish and buys everything, and he's richer than all of them, and they're Ted Knight looking down their nose at him, and it's all very comical and cartoon like, but it's very accurate. This is exactly the way we look at him, and we're all the caddies. They look at us poors, and don't get above your station, right? We're gonna hire these people over here in place of you, and you don't like it. Well, they're cheaper, and I get to keep more of my money. So I'll just call you awful. Then I'll feel morally justified in not hiring you. And that really is all it is. They're looking at all of us,
right.
Legal and illegal, citizen and non-citizen, American, non-American. We're all the same. We're the poors. And that's the way the elite in this country have looked at the majority for far too long. And we've let them get away with it because we are Americans, and Americans tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. We tend to be very polite people. And I've had plenty of people around the world tell me this. I'm not just crowing about my own people. People have noticed it. They say that they're very polite. They have good manners. They're kind of laid back. And we don't, we try not to judge people by where they come from. And that includes not judging people because they're rich. That tends to be a Marxist.
Right.
But most of us aren't Marxists. The reverse is not always true. And one exception, Trump. I think Trump is an exception. I think he actually digs people of all classes.
I know he does. He does seem to. Do. I mean, it's just like he's
very American that way.
It's very American that way.
Yeah.
And so I saw one picture of him shaking a hand of a guy who's dressed in like an Elvis rhinestone with with the rhinestone eagle on the back or something. Elvis was like
Uh,
that. If you go to Graceland,
uh,
he was. I mean, there's all these tributes to him for all of the charity that he gave to his city,
mm,
and I mean, like little bits, right? It's like a few $100s here, a gift there. It's like, but adding
yeah.
up, and that he bought the house that he did, and the house is hysterical, right? Graceland is like Mar-a-Lago, only
Oh,
a little more modest. That it's I have not been to Mar-a-Lago. It looks beautiful in the pictures, so say this, but
mm,
Graceland is horrifically tacky. and and also he had all his cars and his plane with his gold belt buckles and stuff like that, and it's like,
yeah.
yeah, and it's like it's a house that someone loves, and I think that it feels like to me Mar-a-Lago must be that, right? It's like it looks like a house
Mm,
that someone loves, even though it's like got vast beautiful reception rooms and gilding and such. It's still a home, right?
yeah.
The sort of I love this place rather than, well, so we got pushing people over fish, putting people over fish, right?
Yes.
Stopping
California.
radical
Right.
environmentalism to provide water to Southern California. This, of course, he talked about this with Joe Rogan, and of course, when then we watched the fires with not enough water in the reservoir and
There was no water
not
in the
enough
reservoir.
water
It was
that's
empty.
available because the river instead of the river flowing down through the middle of the state and watering all that agricultural land, and you know it's been diverted for the fish.
I think it's been diverted because they hate people.
Well,
That
I do, it does feel
they're
like
not doing
that.
this.
It does feel like they don't like
So the
people
last
very
thing I heard
much.
about this a couple of hours ago, I saw was Trump is going to make federal aid to California dependent upon them initiating voter reform.
Mm. And something about the water too. There was something about the water in it as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They have to stop. They have to stop watering fish and start watering people. Yes, in their neighborhoods.
During my first term, the state of California, at the direction of its governor, filed a lawsuit to stop my administration from implementing improvements to California's water infrastructure. My administration's plans would have allowed enormous amounts of water to flow from the snowmelt and rainwater in rivers in Northern California to beneficial use in the Central Valley in Southern California. This catastrophic halt was allegedly in protection of the Delta smelt and other species of fish. Today, this enormous water supply flows wastefully into the Pacific Ocean. The recent deadly and historically destructive wildfires in Southern California underscore why the state of California needs a reliable water supply and sound vegetation management practices in order to provide water desperately needed there, and why this plan must be immediately re-implemented.
Yep. I don't believe the people in California voted for that. That's got to be fraud everywhere because these fires have been burning for years.
Oh, and they're there, right? It's like tornadoes in the middle of the country, hurricanes on the. Oh yeah, we still need to talk about the
Yeah.
Gulf of America. As our final proof. I
Yeah.
can't believe you just made all the arguments you did about America, and you still think it should be called the Gulf of Mexico.
Because I have no problem with Mexico.
It should be the Gulf of America. It's half of it's.
So, the Americans have always called it the Gulf of
No,
Mexico.
the Spanish
though,
called
so
it
why
the
does
Gulf of
matter?
Mexico. President McKinley
The
fought
Americans
a
did it.
war to get those bits of territory away from the Spanish, and we can.
And he did it. And you know what he didn't do when he did it? He didn't change the name to the Gulf of America.
Why should we name something after what the Spanish called it?
We did
Mexico.
name it
And they
after
and
them.
they and
just
it wasn't
accepted
even
the
it was
name.
Mexican here. I don't even know what they say in the statement. I think we should call it the Gulf of Americas, and I'm delighted by this. I think it's
What happened to okay, we can compromise the Gulf of Our Lady of the Americas or Our Lady of Guadalupe. I mean,
okay,
with either one of those.
fine. However, what they did what they decided to call it, where is it? It's in the I'm starting to figure out where all these are. We got restoring the death penalty, securing our borders, unleashing American energy, there's no order to these.
It's because they're
I
having
mean,
too fast.
the order is obviously the hiring freeze. Okay, where was the names?
Okay, I'll find it. I have it in the back here. Hold on.
Well, it's. I wish they'd numbered them or something.
Yeah, they didn't number them. They're just by name. It surprised me. Let's see. I will read it.
I
Here we
just want to
go.
prove I
Gulf
went
of
to,
America, right
but
after
we,
McKinley.
right, it's in the name, it's in the names, right?
Yeah, it's the area formerly known.
Restoring names that honor American greatness,
We're
right?
never storing it though. It's never called the Gulf of America. The area
Gulf of
formerly known as the
America. The
Gulf of
area, yeah,
Mexico.
formerly known as the Gulf of
That's
Mexico.
hilarious.
Formerly, it's like Prince,
Yeah, the artist formerly, yeah, the
formerly
Gulf
known as the
formerly
Gulf of
known as
Mexico,
Mexico. Yeah.
has long been an integral asset to our once burgeoning nation, and has remained an indelible part of America. The Gulf was a crucial artery for America's early trade and global commerce. It is the largest gulf in the world, and the United States coastline along this remarkable body of water spans over 1,700 miles and contains nearly 660 million acres. Natural resources, beautiful geology, crude oil, also home to vibrant American fisheries, teeming with snapper, shrimp, grouper, stone crab, and other species, and is recognized as one of the most productive fisheries in the world. Tourism, vital region for maritime industry. Gulf will continue to play a pivotal role in shaping America's future in the global economy. Officially rename the Gulf of America. You're done. It's done. It's not the Gulf of Mexico anymore.
When are we going to change the name of the state of New Mexico?
Well, I don't know because I grew up. You know, that grew up. So we were kids. I have grown up in. Let's see. I was born in San Luis. Then we moved to Albuquerque in the state of Nuevo Mexico, and then we moved to Louisville, and then we moved to Amarillo. I'm used to it.
Well, then
we could name one of them right. Like you get your mountain back. I think the Gulf of America sounds perfectly good.
I'm sorry. It sounds ridiculous.
You see her true colors. She was all out there for a nation and America and stuff like that. And
Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama,
America,
and Florida were all part of Spain. They're all part of New Spain.
We're not giving them back.
No, we're not giving them back. But even though we won all, we had already got
no. The thing is, the Spanish-American War wasn't. Texas won itself. Texas gets to say.
Well,
we should call it the Gulf of Texas.
With the help of the Tennessee Volunteers, we have to say. They didn't do it themselves. And they very quickly became American after that, like 20 years later.
I told you this and you didn't know this, right? If the English can call the English Channel, and the French can call it the Channel in French.
It sounds prettier.
We can call it the Gulf of the Americas. Mexico can call it whatever it likes. On their maps, it could be the Gulf of Mexico. It's like
people, they're just going to call it the Gulf. Nobody calls it the Gulf of Mexico. They just call it the Gulf.
The Gulf, right? It's like the tower, the city, the Gulf.
Oh, they even the English Channel. They call it the Channel. So
see, yeah, there you go. We could look at the Gulf. No, it's America's, right? We should. I'd say
it's freedom, Frizy. Come on.
So
joke. Freedom fries was a
okay. So French fries is already an insult. You know why?
Why?
Because they're not French. They're Belgian. Right? If you go to Belgium, they're the ones that eat all the fries with mayonnaise, right? You have fries with mayonnaise. Calling them French fries is already like strange, right? So calling them freedom fries, why not, right?
Well, I think that was a Thomas Jefferson thing he brought from Paris, though, wasn't it? It was just fried potatoes.
No, the Belgians really love French fries, but they call them fries because they're Belgian.
They'll call them frites.
Yes, they're frites. Yes, they're actually frites. So, well, okay, we've done as much as we can in our allotted time. I've been called Lady Brown of Illinois in the chat, and Herman Hunter is Trump's been a busy little beaver, huh? Yes, he has. Busy.
Yes, we don't think he sleeps like ever.
I don't think he does. I really don't think. I mean, he has preternatural energy. It must be all that signing that he does, his magic spells, right? We are in the presence of magic, even when you're watching someone sign a piece of paper.
Magical times.
So, I've not been watching. Oh, look, Annie says, "Hurrah! Presidential Medal of Freedom next." He'll get the swearing in right next time. Yes, there is. Apparently, there is a plan afoot. There's a representative, a congressperson who has brought in a thing to allow Trump to run for a third term.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I mean, we stopped it after FDR because he kept winning, right? It's like, dude, I think there's a difference. Okay, so as, again, somebody in our history, and I forgot where I saw this week, mentioned calling it president rather than king is a sleight of hand in term, or sleight of language, right? He is actually monarch.
Chesterton?
No, it wasn't Chesterton. It was like Madison or something, or Hamilton.
Okay.
I'd seen too much in the last week.
I've never seen that. I got to find that now. Huh.
Or Adams. It's someone recognizing that, we have the executive, and the executive is supposed to have this monarchical power. The difference is not
Either Madison or Adams.
The difference is not so much in his power, which we've just demonstrated by way of all these executive orders, as term limits. Right? You've decided to electorally kill the king at the end of 4 years or the end of 8 years, depending on.
But not the barons. Funny that, huh?
Yeah. And I, so someone was, I one of my, I don't tweet very, very, pithily terribly often. I'm usually like retweeting animals. X has some very good animal channels. The difference, it's not the threat. It's not, there's the difference between democracy and term limits, right? And that's when people are talking about the threats to democracy. Obviously, we just rescinded a whole bunch of executive orders that the previous administration put into place. Here comes the new executive orders this administration puts into place. It's not whether or not we've given power by way of our vote. It's whether or not the king is for life or for a limited amount of time or a certain number of electoral times. Apparently, many of the senators think they should be for life, right? And they just managed to keep getting elected.
It's ridiculous that they hampered the executive office like this and did nothing with the legislative. Why are there no term limits for senators?
Repeat limits, right? They have terms, but they just repeat indefinitely, forever and ever until they die in office.
Well, it's no different. President
yes, you're right. That's the
too.
barons deciding they get to stay in office as long as they want.
That's right. Yeah, and they get wheeled in, incoherent and incontinent. And I'm not saying that to be indelicate. These people are truly the people I'm thinking of who just died recently. Were truly physically and mentally incapacitated, and they were
astonishing that they were still reelected.
Well, this was California. Trump is not wrong when he says you need voter reform.
Yes, because
there's no way. And people smugly say, "Well, you voted for it." Really? Do you really believe that? Especially after 2020, do you really believe that? Same thing with New York. Same thing.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, everybody now better understands how things work. And you need a fancy pen and a piece of paper.
You need a pile of pens.
A pile of pens and a lawyer. I actually did look him up and now I've forgotten his name. Scharf is helping with all of these, who is in fact one of he's the staffer who arranges all of these things and was his moment of I'd say glory, right? Because it is actually the glory of our government is that it works on the basis of all those little folders and the pen. So we invite you to consider the magic of our president's pen. It's been quite a week, eh?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm tired.
I'm tired. Okay, we're all tired. Somehow President Trump is not tired.
No,
he might in Alice's restaurant
and
it's like, I'm not bored or tired.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We're still strumming along. And we'll be here next week to carry on with whatever is happening in the reenchantment and magical world that we live in. Hopefully more logical than last. Thanks for joining us.